Hey there.
Hi, Joa.
Oh, Singapore. How's it going?
Rainy.
Is it really? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So we're in the process of letting people in. So give it a minute or two, and before we start off.
Sounds good.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Tanya, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Sorry for being a couple of minutes late. I'm at the office, so it's a crazy day today.
No worries.
All right. Crazy is good.
Yeah.
So today we have a combination of existing members and some new members joining in the call. So when we start later, I'll do a bit of an introduction again of the whole webinar concept and what we do here every month. Even though that might be a little bit, it's a recurring message.
All right. Yeah, I think we can start.
Yeah, good to go.
Yep.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Good to see everyone. Good. Okay, let's get started. Today, I've shared the agenda with everyone here. We'll spend a quick minute on introducing new members. We will talk about a few deals that we're looking at without going in depth, just to share, what's in our pipeline, what you might be expecting. We'll talk a bit more about the portfolio. Since it's the last webinar of the year, I wanted to share a few points on next year, what our plan is. Then we'll go into the main topic of this webinar, which is the panel discussion. We'll do a Q&A on that, and we'll end the webinar probably within 60 minutes. So we'll try to wrap it up before 6 p.m. Singapore time. And again, our mission, written down here below the agenda, we're trying to help angel investors to get exposure to investments in Southeast Asia. And we do that together with HH Investments, that is sourcing deals, trying to find smart founders that have a global vision and are trying to solve meaningful problems. Today, we have angel investors from 8 different countries, and that is growing every month. So we're becoming a nice international club. All right. Real quick for the new members or for the prospect members, this webinar is every third Thursday of the month, 5 p.m. Singapore time. That is right now. This is the time to talk about angel investing in general and less about specific deals. It is also a chance to meet other angel investors. It is a chance for you to get an update on the deals that we're working on and the deals that are in our portfolio. As always, feel free to interrupt and ask questions or make suggestions. It is an open discussion, so feel free to interrupt if you want. And you will receive a questionnaire after the webinar to provide us with some feedback so that we can continue to improve the quality of this webinar.
Hey, Martin.
All right, Mark.
I have a question.
Yes, please. Andy, hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? From the previous slide, you mentioned 8 countries. Just out of curiosity, I wonder what those are.
Maha, can you help me with that?
I know 2 of them.
Yeah, definitely. So we have Singapore, Australia, Malaysia, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE. How many I counted just now?
6, I think.
What else I'm missing?
I think we have Malaysia, we have Taiwan.
And Taiwan.
You can also include Finland if you want.
And Finland.
Finland, right. There we go. It might be more than 8 even.
Yeah, it might be more than 8.
Very good.
Satisfy, Andy?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just curious.
All right. Thanks for that. All right, Mar.
All right. So joining us, our newest member, Dr. Ali Al-Khatib. He's from Saudi Arabia. So he's an experienced manager in the oil and gas industry, having very strong background in strategic planning, technology, and carbon capture. I think as well, Ali used to be Ali used to be Andy's colleague in Saudi Aramco, and he have as well previously headed an organization basically just finding investments opportunities in the oil and gas field out of Southeast Asia region. So thank you, Ali, for joining the club, and hopefully to continue to go with you.
Thanks for that, and we'll continue to introduce new members every month. The goal is obviously to share with everybody like what kind of knowledge, what kind of experience we have in our network.
Thank you all. Looking forward to it.
Hi. Yes. Thanks. Good to have you.
All right. Thanks, Martin.
All right. So I have a few deals that we're looking at. Obviously, these are deals that are sort of narrowed down from everything we get in our pipeline. We're probably looking at 20 decks every month, and from that we sort of narrow the ones that we think are good. Most of the times we're still in due diligence, as is the case with this company, INSEACT. Again, this is not the time to go really in depth. If you're interested, feel free to reach out afterwards. We can talk a bit more. INSEACT is building the future of shrimp farming. What they are basically doing is growing insect protein. You might have heard of impossible meat, which is obviously plant-based. Insect growing is obviously animal-based, but it's also they're using palm oil waste to basically grow larvae, and then they use the oil from the larvae to create feed for the shrimp. The promise with that is that you need less to achieve the same result, to achieve the same growth rate, and it's also cheaper. Obviously, there's a sustainability element into it. The seas are, because traditionally fish feed is being used. Obviously, the seas are being emptied by us, and obviously, it's a nice way to create an impact on the environment. They have a pilot scheduled with several farms in Malaysia, and they're planning to launch their first facility soon. We're in the midst of the due diligence. We've been speaking to a couple of experts in the field. It's a bit of a technical field. It's not something that we're completely familiar with. Luckily, within this group, we have a few people that are experts, so they're helping out. If we decide to proceed with the investment, if we think this is a good deal for everybody, we'll be presenting it. I'm expecting that to be decided probably within the next 1 or 2 weeks. And then you will hear more from this company. The other company, I think I've shared it before. It's been a bit silent. It's called Table Pointer. Table Pointer uses IoT solutions to reduce energy costs for the F&B sector. They're basically installing IoT devices within a restaurant, within the premises. They measure food traffic, peak hours. They're measuring the temperature, and all that data is then being used to control the devices, either within the kitchen or it being the AC or the lights. Using all that is basically, the outcome of that is to bring down costs. They've signed 50 to 100 customers in Singapore, so they have a little bit of traction. There's some revenue coming in. I spoke to the founder 2 days ago. They've actually asked us if we want to lead the round. There's a few other VCs also interested, so it could be an interesting opportunity for us to help the founder, to mentor him. And I'm having a follow-up meeting with him in January. Things are slowing down a little bit now due to Christmas, etc. But there will be a follow-up early January. The third one I've shared last month. This is still in process. Company is called Augmented. They're a process management software platform that enables companies to digitize workflows, to optimize and automate processes, to guide technicians in real time with remote experts, and to train technicians more efficient. That is a little bit technical, but what it comes down to is that they basically deliver software on a no-code basis, meaning that the company can actually configure the software themselves without having to hire an expensive software company or an expensive consultant to install the software or to even build and customize the software. And there's a pilot with SATS scheduled, which is a company here in Singapore. They do they provide airline food, and that pilot is running. I'm still in the midst of analyzing this company, and I'm at this moment not sure yet if we will be presenting it to everybody. But keep an eye out for this, and I might be sharing it. Obviously, you feel free to reach out to the founders directly. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But if we want to present it in our network, we obviously want to be also investing in them. We want to present that kind of quality to you guys. That's it for the new deals that we're currently looking at. A bit on the portfolio. Normally, I wouldn't talk too much about this, but since it's the last webinar, a little bit of the companies that we added in 2020. So we've done 5 deals in 2020. It's a little bit less than we wanted. I'll get to that. We've done Activo Labs, which is innovating the insurance industry. We've done YQ, which is digitizing street food in Southeast Asia. We've done Drivela, it's a peer-to-peer car sharing platform. We've invested in Budlerick, which is a point-of-sale technology company. And we're working with Solpix, which is a next-generation point-of-interest social recommendation platform. As I said, the goal was to invest in 10 companies, which is actually our yearly goal. But we have not been able to invest between April and July this year. In Singapore, there was a strict lockdown, and we just didn't have any opportunities to look at. The world was on fire. It still is. Fortunately, in Singapore, the situation is under control. But because of that, we're still getting a lot of deals now, and we should be able to hit our target by next year. Also, a little bit on the plans for next year to share that with everyone here. The next webinar in January is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to. We're probably going to do a demo day, and that demo day will be in collaboration with another angel club. Actually, that club will probably be based in Europe. The idea is that to really bring a bit more international vibe, to get different deals and support the different clubs. We're still working on that. It's not confirmed yet, but we'll let you know when there's more information on that. The target for next year is actually to present 1 deal every month to the club, which means that a deal that we invest in, that we like, that we want to share with you. We're also working on setting up a follow-on fund. Our idea is to actually support companies a little bit further than in the angel stage. We have a lot of quality companies in our portfolio, and we think that we want to go further. We want to support them in their Series A. That could be leading, or that could be co-investing with other investors, other VC. There's a lot of work to be done for this, but I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a hint on that, and we'll again let you know when we're a bit further on that. Next year, we want to add another 100 members to this club. As you all know, we started at the beginning of 2020. We've grown nicely. We have a group of intelligent people here and a lot of experts. But next year, we want to actually sort of expand that, grow that further. In order for that to happen, but also to set up the fund, we're currently actually hiring in Singapore. We're hiring an analyst, and we're also looking for an investment associate intern. Now, I know that there's a lot of people here that are not in the region, but for the people that are in Singapore, and you might know somebody, or you might actually be interested yourself, you need to talk to Joanne about this. Feel free to drop us a note on WhatsApp. We'll be sharing the profile, etc. Okay, I think that's it for the introduction. Let's get to the main event. Today we have another panel, and we're going to talk about how angel investors evaluate their opportunities. Last month, we talked about how angel investors find opportunities, how they source them. And this is about picking the good ones. We have 2 experts today. I'll introduce them real quick, and then I'll let them talk a little bit and let them introduce themselves. So here we have Shi-Ying. Shi-Ying has experience in Grab. She has extensive experience as an investor, and she's based in Malaysia. We also have Anthony. Anthony is actually Anthony is a doctor. He has a medical background, but has evolved into being an investor, and that's what he's doing today. But I think more important that we hear from them. So maybe Shi-Ying, do you want to start and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi everyone, Shi-Ying here. Just a little bit about myself. I started my career in Google back in Silicon Valley, I think 2007. There was, yeah. So being in consulting, subsequently was in Grab. If you're familiar with Grab, the company actually started out as a taxi booking app that pivoted repeatedly. And I went in to start off the ride-hailing business for the company. So I was one of the early days employees. Built the business from scratch to about 63% market leader for Malaysia, and subsequently left in end of 2016. Have been mentoring startups since then. Actively investing probably about 2 years ago. I won't have substantial investment experience like Anthony himself does, but so far I've invested about 6 startups directly, and the rest of them will be via syndicates or accelerator programs.
All right, thank you very much. Anthony, you the same?
Hi guys. So my journey into investing was never a straight line. I'm Malaysian by birth. I left Malaysia when I was very young. I went to Europe just to study medicine and then started working as a doctor. And then just through friends, I started dabbling in investing, small amounts. While pursuing a sort of a medical career as well, I started investing in about 2008. Just like probably some of the other members in this club, just small amounts. Let's see what we can get out of it. And then it just kind of started to grow over time. A lot of the time when you're an angel investor, the strength of your deal flow becomes quite paramount, and and therefore who are the people in your network as well become quite important, because it's the overall deal flow is the bucket of the deal flow is dependent on guys that are savvy enough to come up with good deals, and eventually they kind of pull you in our network, or give you a ring someday and say, hey, I've got this thing on my hand. Or these days it's just WhatsApp. They just send it on WhatsApp and say, hey, what do you think of this? Anyway, I went from being a doctor, went into freelance consulting, healthcare management, exited a healthcare startup, met Shi-Ying by chance, really, about a bit over a year now. Have mentored startups. The bulk of my investments actually were outside of Southeast Asia. Not out of anything, just because I felt like the ecosystem was a lot more mature and robust in the US and Europe. But I feel that Asia is now kind of really picking up steam. 2020 has been a bit of a groundhog day for most people, but I think 2021, when things start to carry on, it'll be quite interesting to see what the deals are going to be like next year.
All right, I think we're all looking forward to 2021 without that. All right, great, thanks for the introduction. Okay, let's talk about how we evaluate opportunities. I think we all have our own system, whether we are just getting started with investing or we are actually far ahead in the journey. But before we dive into depth, I just wanted to talk about a couple of general questions. The first question I have for you guys is, when you start to evaluate a deal, all the way from first time seeing the deck to making your investments, and maybe this is a question for Shi-Ying, how long does it typically take for you to make that decision, to actually go from seeing the deal all the way to making the actual investment?
I think Anthony is going to laugh at this. So to me, it really depends on how much is the investment size, right? Like if it's a very small amount, I've made decision and invested in within 24 hours for very small deals, to very large deals. To me, like my definition of large deals is probably like 50 to 100K USD. Those would take me about from day one, getting to know about the company, receiving the pitch deck, all the way to signing the paperwork. The whole process will take about 1.5 months to 2 months.
Right. Is that the same for you, Anthony? I mean, Shi-Ying made a reference to you.
No, I think she raised a very good point, and I think it alludes to what I said earlier as well. I think over time people end up trusting the other people that they've invested with on multiple deals, and that trust extends beyond the friendship, quote unquote. That being said, I'm sort of in line with Shi-Ying on this as well. I think it depends on how much it is to take the punt. If the marginal cost of entry is quite low, then you can make a decision very quickly. If it's a quote unquote substantial amount of money, and substantial in this case could be variable depending on who the individual is. As long as it becomes substantial, then that buy-in takes longer. I think it also depends on the momentum of the company. Some companies just happen to have everything lined up. The data room is super detailed. Everything everything's already there, laid out. You just have to go in, spend a couple of hours. You can look through the A to Z. Then there's other companies that actually do have all the elements. It's just that they're not as organized, and there's a lot of back and forth on emails, so it's all the logistical nightmares that are hurdles. So yeah,
you make an
anywhere
interesting
between
bridge
24
there.
hours to 2 months.
Right, 24 hours also the fastest. Okay, so you make an interesting bridge here because the fear of missing out. Obviously we're talking about like how much the ticket size is, right? But then there is the company side where some of these deals are hyped up by people that and obviously founders always the good founders try to create that fear of missing out, right? You want to jump in now or you're too late. Anthony, have you ever rushed into a decision because of fear of missing out, and do you regret that?
Well, I'd say I almost missed out, or almost went in, and I'm actually, hindsight is 2020, right? I'm actually glad I didn't go in. This was over 10 years ago. Just like what you said, there was a company. This was in Europe. They were hyping up a deal. It was e-commerce, and the numbers looked quite good, and everyone was kind of piling in. Good management team, founders from I think one guy was McKinsey or something. Long story short, I never went in, and I think within 12 to 15 months the company was kaput. So
right,
when you the earlier the stage of the company, the more difficult it is to articulate the value proposition of the company, right? So because of that, the relative risk of investing in the earlier you are is higher. So you're better off making much smaller bets and diversifying the risk.
Right. And Shi-Ying, how do you deal with that sort of reptile brain? Right, we all know that psychology of I feel it too, right? You have a deal, you're talking to the founders, you fall in love maybe during the first call, and they make you super excited. How do you sort of healthily slow yourself down and try to make a rational decision?
I think first of all, for what I did in the foundation level is I do have my own personal investment thesis. What kind of startups I'll be looking at, what kind of investment size and which stages they are in. So that is always my guiding point in terms of what kind of investments I'll be looking at. But in terms of the culture of fear of missing out, right? If a really, really good startups come along, like it seems to be too good to be true, normally I would not jump right in unless the ticket size is really, really low. So typically I wait for a week or two. If let's say after a week or two, the assignment level that I'm still really interested, then I'll do a lot more due diligence on the deal. Recently, for instance, just a few weeks ago, a deal came into my mailbox. It was introduced to me, was a pretty exciting lab-grown diamond technology that's based out in the US. And as the branding is right, the hype is right, the numbers, the pre-launch revenue is already there. They have the right initial investors. Everything seems perfect. But I hung out to it for about a week or two, did not jump right in. Did a lot more due diligence, speaking to people from the industry, getting their viewpoint, looking at the research reports and so forth. And in the end, I decided not to go for it.
Yeah. So this is an interesting point, and then just to add my opinion also, maybe I don't know if that could be of any use for people here, but I also believe that time is a very important thing to build into your into your analysis, right? So we'll talk a bit more about what kind of questions we ask and what are we looking for, but in general, you want to have that time element. What I mean by that is that, you know, we tend to fall in love with companies and founders more specifically, maybe during the first call. That's like where you're peaking, right? Either you find somebody who you totally dislike and you don't like the company, or you fall in love with them. And I spend probably 2-3 weeks trying to unlove them. Right? I try to prove to myself, like, why do I not like these people? What's wrong here? Right? And that's very difficult because you have that biasness in your head of like, I actually like them. I want to invest. I think they're good. Right? But if you're rational, you tend to sort of like find all these flaws. And then after all these flaws, and maybe 2-3 weeks later, if you then still want to invest, then, you know, maybe that's the time to actually invest. And I find that important. Yeah. You want to add something to that?
Yeah, I totally agree on that. So one of the deals that I invested that was introduced by your site, right? And totally same journey that I went through. I find 1001 reasons why they might not work. And probably took a month to really understand their industry, their technology, and what they're offering. Requested for a second interview with the founder. And then only after all my due diligence is done, then I decided to go for it. So yeah, I went through the whole process to try to, as quoting your words, unlove them. And at the end of the day, if I still like them, then yes, it's a go ahead for me. Yeah. And a lot of times, like, I do find 2 months later or 3 months later, they are still fundraising. So there's never things like, oh, we are going to close tomorrow. Are you in?
Right. That's interesting that you mentioned that. I would just spend some time myself last week to follow up with a couple of companies that we did not invest in this year, and I think 99% was still fundraising.
Yeah.
You know, and this is 6 months later. So that's the reality. Okay.
I sort of agree with what you guys are saying as well. I think I mean, we're all talking about the same thing, just using slightly different words. I think it's important to deconstruct each company that you come across. It's not to make them feel bad, but it's to ascertain and ensure that all the assumptions that they're selling to you are actually truthful, or truisms, or actually true in the end. And to do that, you kind of have to pick and poke holes at them and make sure that they can stand the test of your thought process as well as the test of time. So it's like what you guys are saying, right? Whatever you say today, it has to hold true still in 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years from now.
Exactly.
And if they do, then that's a company worth going into.
Yeah. Okay. If there's any questions, guys, feel free to speak up, shout. We'll be happy to take some. We talked a bit about the generics, the general part of like making investments. Let's go into depth. Let's try to analyze. Let's try to see how we deconstruct companies. First step, I'm curious about, Shi-Ying. How many companies do you typically review before you make an investment decision?
So there's two parts to it, right? I get a lot of personal deal flows, and I get like deal flows from Nexia. I'm also a partner at Nexia Angels, based out in Malaysia. So from Nexia standpoint, we get about 800 to 1,000 pitch deck per year. On the personal side, I'm a member on quite a number of syndicates, and I get approached quite substantially on LinkedIn as well. And plus the introductions from other investors. So I would say any given time will be looking at per year about 1,200 on the average pitch decks. After a while, you kind of know. So again, falling back to what is my investment thesis, right? What kind of startups I want to be looking at, what kind of industry, what kind of sectors, and things like that. So after a while, you look at the pitch deck, you know straight away these are the ones that I would not touch. And sad to say, they will go into my archive mailbox. The ones that I got slightly more excited, I got really excited, those are the ones that I'll explore the second stage.
Okay. And to my question, you look at 1,000 deals, how many do you end up investing?
This year alone, I probably invested in 6 different startups.
6 to 1,000. Okay. Yeah. Sounds about the ratio that I see.
Yeah.
So Anthony, and for you, like, I mean, like Shi-Ying mentioned, we all get deals from left and right, and some come through LinkedIn, some come through trusted connections, all kinds of channels. And what is your method to make sure that you look at all of them in an efficient manner, but you're able to sort of quickly filter out the good from, or the potentials from the ones that you would never touch? What is your method for this?
I think that's a super question. I wouldn't say it's a science. So for the most part, what I tend to do is I try to avoid as many conversations as I can. It may seem rude, it may seem odd, but you know, 1,000+ decks a year, and I'm getting about that amount as well, is in the region of 4 decks a day, right? And ultimately, if the value proposition cannot be described in the deck, then you know we shouldn't be investing. Even if it's a great company, if they cannot articulate the value proposition appropriately in the deck, then they're missing something, or maybe I'm missing something. So the deck is the first port of call, really, and the deck tends to, in my mind, it tends to filter out 85-90% of total deal flow. And then thereafter, you know, it's a first point of, hey, you know, I've read your deck, I'd like to have a chat. After that, it's evaluation of the team itself, or, you know, first point of contact.
Yeah.
So that's like the second filter. Then third filter is, you know, if I'm really, really interested, depends on where the company's at, right? Can I look at your numbers? Can I look at your financials? So, you know, if it's a B2C company, they may not actually have any revenue, so to speak, but they may have growth in terms of numbers. So then, you know, then it's a case of, you know, show me your numbers.
Let's get to that. Let's get to that part. But
yeah,
what I'm trying to say is, like, look, you know, ultimately you're saying you get 1,000 deals. You just look at the deck. You're just opening the deck, and then you're quickly able to say in a few seconds yes or no.
For the most part, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'll be a little bit honest here. Sometimes I don't even open the deck, because I look at the summary and I know this is an area that I will not touch. Then I won't bother spending the 5-10 minutes to go through the deck.
That's interesting, because that leads to my follow-up question, actually, because, you know, investors are typically, I think, curious people. I speak for myself, but I think a lot of people in this group, they start investing out of curiosity, out of like, you know, explore new fields, explore new ideas. We're in a comfort zone in a way, because we start to invest in what we understand. That has been my journey. You know, you look at certain companies and you're like, oh, okay, I know how to do this, arrogantly speaking, but you know, you have a bit of a foresight. But at the same time, you know, do you want to push yourself, try to go into new industries? If you see a deck in an industry that you've never touched before, are you curious? Do you push yourself to sort of say, hey, I'm still going to go in here, I'm going to do my research, I want to speak to these guys? Or do you stick with what you know, and you just filter out everything else? I don't know who wants. Yeah, it's a question. I mean, any of the two of you.
I'll take a stab at that. I think it's easier to go. I personally feel it's easier to go inch wide, mile deep, because, you know, pre-existing knowledge is easier to build on rather than finding new knowledge in a new industry. But on the flip side, I've actually done 1 or 2 deals in industries I know next to nothing about, and those deals, to tie to some of our earlier questions, took a lot longer to close, just because I needed to come up to scratch with the background information to understand those industries. I mean, like Shi-Ying was just talking about, you know, artificial diamonds just now, and I can tell you the amount I know about artificial diamonds is probably about that much. So that being said, ultimately it comes down to the fundamentals of any individual business, and if you have certain convictions on that and potential, then perhaps it's something to consider. And that's again related to how much you're planning to invest in a particular investment.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would look at it. It's not binary. It's relative to how much money you're going to put into a company.
Right. Okay. And Shi-Ying, is that the same for you? And if so, how much do you let the founder lead you? Do you sometimes do you go all the way? Do you fully understand it if it's a new industry, or do you put some trust with the founder and say, okay, if you think this is right, then I will follow you?
Well, it really falls back to what is your thesis, right? Again, like for me, I don't just preferably like first priority. I don't just invest for the sake of investing. There are certain companies that are going personally and mentor them because, for instance, like YQ, right, which I invested through HH, is like it was a very clear value proposition for me. And these guys are expanding to Malaysia. I know I can provide value for them in terms of their expansion into Malaysia. So these are the startups that is like tier one for me. I understand their industry inside out. I know that I can provide value for them. So the tier twos is like, I understand their industry, but not necessarily I want to go the extra mile to provide value and open up networks to them. And the third one, then I will look at industries that I semi-familiar with. Then it's probably up to the founders to see how they want to carry on with the business model and the growth plan.
Right. So you actually put some trust in the founders in that case and say, okay, I trust that this person is able to, this person knows more than I do about this industry, so I trust that he can handle that. Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because we it's impossible for us to know every single industry inside out. But in the very top level, if we know how the consumers market works, how marketplaces works in a certain geographical area, a certain region, then that will be a plus point.
Interesting. Okay. Let's take one step further. Let's try to make it more practical for everyone here. And I think, Anthony, you already took a bit of a step on this. What are sort of the, let's say you, out of those 1,000 decks, you narrowed down 10 that you think, hey, this is interesting. What are the key criteria that you look at when you open the deck?
It's if any of you guys have a bit of time, there's I don't know if it's still on YouTube. There's a documentary about how venture capital got started in the US, and Don Valentine, Sequoia Capital's in the video, and he talks about it, and he says something really funny. He says a lot of the time we never even look at the first 20 pages. We turn to the last page, look how large the market size and how large the numbers are, and then if that's attractive enough, then we go back to the front and see what it's actually about. I wouldn't take it at that level of extreme. But fundamentally, as altruistic and value accretive we want to be, we're in the business of actually putting money into companies to help them to grow, but also to end up making some money for either for ourselves or as potentially professional investors for our limited partners, right? So in that respect, we're looking at industries or companies that are kind of going to be able to grow, not just 2x or 3x, but potentially order of magnitude type of growth. So and that's why fundamentally the money is always flowing into new technologies, new businesses, new disruptors, right? So I think that's a more subtle filter. It may not be palpable or actually expressed in the deck, but then you also want to filter in those respects. So you get the deck, you look at the deck, okay, if all the numbers make sense, but then you also have to sit down and have a think, is this a growth industry? Is it going to be somewhere in 5 years from now? Or is it something that it isn't? And then if it is, then you have that discussion with the founder, and the founders tend to fall into several different categories, but they're the ones that actually can convince you that the future is actually going to be different in 5 years from what you envision it to be. And these are the categorical reasons why. And if they can do that and articulate that with actual data, then I think you'd be quite comfortable as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that documentary, I'll be sharing that with everyone here tomorrow. I saw it like a couple months back. It actually has an interesting reference also to what Shi-Ying said. For example, Atari, right? They started in the 70s. They were actually, the reason they got so successful was actually because of their investor. So when back then Sequoia invested in them, or I think it's Sequoia, but any of these guys, they actually brought them their first customer.
Yeah, it was Sequoia.
Right? Yeah, and because of that, Atari obviously had a huge ramp up and became quite successful. And I think that makes a big reference to what Shi-Ying said. Is like, I'm trying to help these companies. Can I add value? Can I help them to grow? So we'll be sharing that documentary with everyone. I think Anthony, interesting. You talk about the business. You talk about the market size, all the things you can see in the deck, right? All the things that you might understand or might not understand. But Shi-Ying, how important is the founder, the team, versus the quality of the business or the potential quality of the business?
So that's a very good question, right? I actually do have a set of criteria that I evaluate the startup during the interview process. And which one of the criteria is on the team, the founding team potential. And that is the most important criteria to me, purely because a startup might change their business model quite a number of times before they come to a growth stage, even at the late stage of investment. However, the leadership team or the founding team is the one that's making a difference, whether how far they can carry the company or the business model forward. So to me, that is a very crucial evaluating criteria.
Right. And are you looking for second-time founders, or do you invest in first-time founders?
I look at their track records. I look at why they started this. What's their strength? What's their talent? How well do they know each other? And how much potential does the leadership team has? So whether they came from the industry itself, that's a plus point because they will have all the pre-existing network ready. And yeah, so these are the things that I look at in terms of the founding team.
Right. Anthony, on a scale of 1 to 10, founders or business, which one is more, which one is more heavy?
I'd actually give it, I'd actually give more weightage to the founders. I sort of agree with Shi-Ying. I mean, you might have a great value proposition, but pardon my French, if you've got a shit team, it's not going to go anywhere. So you could have something which is I wouldn't say mediocre, but a middling business value proposition. But if you've got an excellent team, you've got a ball game. So the team is, and this is even more important the earlier in you are. So the earlier you are, the more important the team becomes.
Right. So if I can sort of summarize what you guys are saying, you basically, Anthony, you're open the deck. You say, okay, first it needs to be a huge market, and then I'm going to go to the team. I know, this is very black and white.
Yeah, Martin? I mean that's true.
Yeah, Tanya.
Oh, sorry about that. First of all, thank you so much, Shi-Ying and Anthony. It's been super interesting so far. I have to be off video, but I've been listening throughout, and you spent now a decent amount of time on focusing on people and the founders. And I came across a quote the other day, which I found hilarious, but also so true. I just wanted to share it with the guys here and with everyone here. Actually, I think it might add value to the discussion as well, or at least frame people's mindset for later. It says, I'm a people investor. My job is to sit across the table every day and listen to some lunatic tell me about some future that I've never imagined and try to figure out which lunatic I want to go on an adventure with. So Anthony just said something super similar to that, which is somebody who just shapes the future in a way that you didn't even think was possible. And those, I think, are the founders that really kill it.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I think that is definitely that summarizes things quite a bit. I want to add one thing to that, and that's also a strategy that I always apply as my final question in my first interview with the founders. I always ask the founder to give me, or the founders to give me, the top 3 reasons why the business is going to fail. So they can pitch for 50 minutes about, like, how big this industry is, how fantastic it is, how megalomanically good they're going to succeed, and some of them will. But I believe that even for these guys, right, even for the big dreamers, they still need to have a bit of a realism. I feel they will, if they can actually tell me, like, I'm gonna be amazing, right? This is gonna be fantastic. But I think these are the 3 real risks of this business, and this is why it might fail. That's actually, if you find that combination, that typically tends to work out quite well. I like these people who say, well, we're missing this and we're missing that, but if we can solve all that, then we might actually go very far. I end my interviews with these questions. I think and we've been talking about this this first interview with these founders. Shi-Ying, once the interview is over and you hang up the phone these days or Zoom, what's next? What happens? Do you wait for them to reach out, or are you going to pursue them? What is your process after that first interview?
So before I address this question, actually, back to the founder, right? I because I work so closely with the CEO of Grab, and knowing his character really well, so I have the unfair biases. I'll be honest about this. A really competitive founder or overachiever, super achiever founder, how the character should be like. So there are times that I will start picturing, well, would this founder be like 70% of how Grab CEO is like? Then I can envision whether this guy is a potential to take the company to unicorn or semi-unicorn status, you see. So that's one way that I always try to picture whether this founder is the person that will take.
So you're saying that you have like a reference. You say like, I have this successful founder, and I sort of mirror everybody to that.
Decacorn status CEO that I work closely with.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And to the question, like once you hang up the phone, what do you expect to happen next, or what do you do next?
Yeah, obviously you want the founders to really want to reach out to you and see how badly they want your investment.
Exactly.
How they see the value coming from. But at the same time, I start doing my own research. Whether it's reading out online, understanding the market segment, or talking to other VCs, get their input in this, or even talking to technical experts. Like just 2 weeks ago, I was evaluating a telco investment, and I actually reach out to people that's in the industry, people who has put out who put together the deal for their prospective IPO and things like that, to get their inputs on the different viewpoints of how they look at this company or this industry as a whole. So I look at not just from the investor's point of view, I also look at from the technical point of view, because I really want to know what's going on in the industry currently.
Right. So, I mean, to your point, I mean, we want the founders to reach out. I think that is important. It's a very important metric, in my opinion. If you don't hear from them, or they reach out to you 1 month later, it can mean that this is a 1 out of 1,000 company, which is actually extremely good, and they really don't need you. That could be one of the reasons they don't reach out to you. But typically, something is wrong if people don't follow up after an interview and really send you what you've asked for and just be prompt. And if you don't reply, they actually follow up once or twice with you. I think this process is quite important to understand how bad they want it, like you said.
I'm just going to jump in here and just add a little bit to that. I think it's also speaking. It's the softer side of things, which is about leadership skills and bringing a company as well, right? I mean, it's about the EQ of the founders. So, on the one hand, you need to be able to ascertain whether these guys are going to be harassing somebody, or whether they know what is that sweet spot, that they're not in your face all the time, but not too far away either, just at arm's length, and they're engaging with you at the right speed, at the right tempo, and that that EQ, how good they are at that, is also a testament to whether or not the business is going to take off at some level.
Yeah,
so that's another soft side there. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. That's absolutely true. I think when you're in that research phase, right, and Shi-Ying just mentioned a few things that she's doing, looking at the technology. I can imagine that I test the service, or I try to test the product that I'm investing in. I might visit the location. I try to be a customer, right? Like see if something goes wrong, how they do the customer support. So you try to, actually, just to add on that, being a customer somewhere is actually sometimes a great way to find a new opportunity, right? So before you even see a deal, you might actually test the product or service just because you're a consumer. You find this great product and you find this amazing customer service, that might be worth it for you to actually explore a little bit further and see if this is actually an interesting company to invest in. Goes a bit more to the sourcing of companies. It's a bit off topic, but I found a few opportunities like that in the past. But let's take a few points from this research phase that might be important. For example, Anthony, how important is the valuation when you look at a company and you're like, this is a great deal, or this is a great company, they're good founders? How important then is the valuation at that point?
I think I wouldn't not important, but I think it also depends on how. I mean, I've actually invested. This was a couple of years back, but I've actually invested in a company that was literally a concept. I mean, it was literally great PowerPoint, great team, great everything. And the team had already done a previous startup, exited, blah, blah, blah. So it's, experienced team. And they came to me and said, we want to do this. Okay. So it's literally first money in. So at that point, you're kind of going, okay. And they just put a tentative valuation on the company. They were going for ordinary shares. It wasn't a safe note, etc. They had their rationale for that. So I think it's almost like a deal by deal basis. I'm not trying to say how long is a piece of string, but it largely depends again on the people and whether you can perceive the future in the same way that they do. Now, that's one end of the spectrum. The other end is going to be there's this guy that shows you everything. The deck looks perfect until you come to we're asking for this amount of money, but the valuation is somewhere something ridiculous. At which point you're kind of going, okay, it was nice knowing you. So there's two ends of the spectrum there.
But that's tough, right? Because sometimes I've experienced it, when you see an amazing founder, right? At least in how you think he will be running the business. You see an amazing business, you see a gigantic opportunity, but then this crazy valuation comes up, which might actually say something about the quality of the founder, but still it happens. And it's sort of like, I actually want in, I think this is nice, but because it's so expensive, I don't think it's worth it for me.
Sure, right? And typically in those situations, right, you don't necessarily have to be the first guy who says yes. You just have to wait until some other guy also says yes. And it alludes to what you said, right? I mean, sit on it for a while. And this is literally market forces in action. The price is going to normalize to something a bit more reasonable over time. Obviously there's going to be crazy money out there that chases other crazy opportunities, and if the founder is smart enough to secure such funding, well and good for him. But again, subsequent rounds are going to be even harder to justify then. So
right. Okay, thanks for that. One more question out of the research. I think for the sake of time, we need to start wrapping up. For Shi-Ying, how important for you is the sort of exit strategy? We're looking at a business in its very early stages. They might be the first or second year. Do you try to envision the exit strategy? Do you find that important?
Yeah, that's one of the evaluation criteria for me. So the question I'll typically ask, not at the beginning of the interview, but towards more like, let's say I'm 60 or 70% warm up towards the deal, I'll typically ask myself, who are the potential acquirers, or where do you think this company is headed to 5 years or 7 years from now? If I have a clear answer where I visualize they will be heading towards, then most likely it's a vote of confidence for me.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It is important for me also. I always want to have the founders that understanding of like, where is this ending, right? Where you're starting this journey, you're raising money. There's a lot of founders out there who have no idea where it's going to end.
Yeah.
Typically because of unexperience, right? They don't know how this works. But it is important to think about it. And to me, it's a red flag if founders say, well, we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it leads to. We just want to be the biggest.
It reflects into how the founders will position their business model as well. Because a smart founder will actually try to position their business model in such a way that towards like 5-7 years down the road, they are in a very good position to be acquired. So whether it's the partners they bring on board or how they build themselves out in the ecosystem. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Guys, for sake of time, if anybody has any questions, we still have a few more minutes before Anthony needs to drop off to another call. Anybody likes to ask something? All right. Then let's start let's end with this this webinar. Just a few words. Do provide us feedback as much as you can via the feedback form that we'll be sending you. Feel free to invite other people to this monthly webinar. We're open to let everybody in who has an interest in angel investing. We will reach out to prospect members who've been attending this webinar and to talk to them and see how we can help them to move forward. And as always, feel free to reach out to us on WhatsApp if you have any questions about ongoing deals or deals in the portfolio. I want to thank Shi-Ying and Anthony. Thank you very much for this insightful discussion. I think it has added a lot of value for our members. I think everyone has been able to maybe learn something or pick some ideas. We'll continue to do this in the upcoming webinars. Ultimately, the goal here is to learn from each other, whether you're very experienced or you're just getting started. That's what we're trying to build here. So guys, thank you very much. I think we just finished on time, Anthony, Shi-Ying. You have a good day. And
Thank
for
you.
everyone else here, you have an amazing day, evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
everyone. Very
Thank
interesting
you.
discussion. Thank you.